was a student nurse in my second year of a 3-year course at the Holy Cross Hospital in Calgary, Alberta. The supervisor was having a class, and at the end of the class she said, "Girls, we're going to have some interns come in next week." And she said, "You better be careful or you just might end up marrying one of them." Ha, I said, "I'll never marry a doctor. I'm going to marry a guy with a 9-to-5 job and weekends off." Well, as good as she said, the interns arrived the following week. Ray and his sidekick, Roman, arrived, and along with them, 4 married interns. The next day, or the first day, I met Dr. Raymond Fleming, 6'3½", handsome, 210 pounds, dark hair, and oh, what a honey. Well, it wasn't long before we were put together to work. I was in the emergency room and he was suturing up a young gentleman's wrist. After he'd finished, he came to me and said, "Miss Taft, would you look at this suturing job? It's my first and I want to make sure it's okay." So I went over and had a look at it, and I said, "Dr. Fleming, that is a wonderful job." I didn't tell him that it was the first time I'd ever seen a suturing job. For our first date was a golf date. And I had pretended that I knew all about golf. He pretended he didn't. He was just a beginner. He didn't know very much. But as the day grew closer that we were to go, I got cold feet, and I asked my older brother Bill if he would come and join us, because at least he knew how to golf. After the golf game, we went home for supper at my house, and he met my brother John, my other brother John, and my mother. And looking at my mother, he said, "My, how young can you get?" Well, she was putty in his hands from that moment on. The internship, after meeting my mom and brother and having supper, we went down to the pump room where my mother worked. And we met her boss, her boss's wife, and several of the waitresses that she worked with. Following that, we went to my grandmother's place. We met my grandmother, my grandfather, and one of my aunts, and my uncle, and a cousin. But we hadn't put him through too much torture. So from there on, we went to Bowness Park, which was at that time just on the outskirts of Calgary. And would you believe it or not, I had another aunt and uncle and 2 cousins that happened to be there at the same time. This is all of our first date, and he came through with flying colors. I was very impressed, and so were my 2 brothers. His internship year passed very quickly, and at the end of it, he decided that he would like to go to San Francisco and get more experience in surgery. So that meant writing letters every day. At that time, Canada Post was a real post office, and we got delivery of letters twice a day and once on Saturdays. After a couple of months, my mother and I decided we would go down to San Francisco for a holiday and see how Ray was doing. So getting on the bus, we traveled night and day so that we wouldn't have to pay hotel charges, save a bit of money. And at the end, Ray had managed to get a rather economical place for us to stay near where he was working. That week that we spent there, Mom and I spent the time shopping and sightseeing. Ray and I sometimes had a little bit of time together, but mostly Mother was with us. On the Sunday that we were to return to Calgary, Ray and I left Mom in the bus depot so that we could have a little bit of time alone. We got in the car and we drove a few blocks away from the bus depot, and we went down an alleyway, and Ray stopped behind a big building, and it was the San Francisco Chronicle News. He said, "Evelyn, I'd like to have a talk with you." And I thought, oh dear, what have I done? And he said, "Please forgive me for not getting on my knees." But he said, "The steering wheel's in my way." And he said, "I don't have very much in money or possessions, but I assure you that whatever I have, I will share with you. And my prospects are certainly looking very much better. I would like you to be my wife, would you?" So I felt very relieved, and I said yes. But previously I told him that I would, if he ever proposed, I would like him to give me a box of chocolates and a bouquet of flowers. So I said, "Where are the flowers and the chocolates?" And he said, "Well, what if you'd said no? What would I have done with them then?" This is a Sunday night back in 1954, or 55, I guess it was. And the stores were closed on the weekend, on the Sundays. So where were we going to find flowers and chocolates? There was a flower lady standing on the corner, and we were able to get a dozen red roses from her. But we couldn't find any chocolate place open. We went to a pharmacy, and they didn't have chocolates, but they did have a 15-cent box of M&Ms. And of course they're chocolates, so it had to do. And with that, we went back to the bus depot and picked up Mother, and it was time to board the bus. Flowers, chocolates, me, and my mom. Thank you.
Oh, nice. Lovely.